And what's your view on the investment of LVMH in Paris FC? You mentioned you've been at the club. I don't know if you're a fan of the club.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting brand.
Yeah.
And Paris is the only main city in Europe where you have only one major club. So the opportunity, when you see that from behind, you think about Madrid, you have Real Madrid, Atletico, two big clubs, but then you have Rayo Vallecano, Getafe, Leganés, the higher clubs. Barcelona, also two clubs, Real Madrid, Barcelona Español. London, many clubs.
Yeah.
And three big clubs. It's true that Paris was there with just PSG.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is a personal perception, but sometimes I feel that PSG, it's a bit disconnected from the Paris identity in a way, because with all the investment that has come, the ownership from Qatar that have done amazing things and achieved amazing success.
Yeah.
But on the other side, it kind of lost the connection. I don't know if it's a personal perception. So I feel that Paris FC can fill that gap.
PSG have done a pretty good job at keeping their fan base involved and growing it in a way that they're not, even though like it's incredible amounts of money so far away from your fans, but they've actually done a great job at. PSG has some of the best fans, right? Like the atmosphere for away matches like PSG is incredible. So they've done a pretty good job. But to get back to the original point of Paris, I worked at Paris FC. I have peers from the industry that I know very well who invested in the previous run with Paris FC. And I was like, I would never invest in Paris FC. Like my feedback was like, they don't have a location. They don't have anything. They played in the 13th. They had offices in the 12th. No, they played in the 12th, had offices in the 13th, trained in the suburbs. Like it had no identity. Nobody coming at the venues, regardless of third division, second division, etc. And they had a tough time coming to first division. So it's like, but they found the right investor for them, right? They found the local Parisian one, luxury, who want to create a bit of a different image, and all of a sudden moves from a club who even with free tickets had a tough time like reaching 2,000-3,000 fans, to like being packed in most of the matches in a 19,000 seats stadium. So it's an incredibly interesting one, and it's one where every time I think that I understand well enough the sports industry, there's something that surprises me where I'm like, fuck, I didn't see that one coming. And I didn't see that like the investors coming at Paris FC. And the truth is that now that everything is coming together, they're kind of building it in the right way. Their team is very coherent. They're struggling a little bit, but I think they're going to figure it out. There's people coming to the matches and they have a room to take, as you said. And I think it's very much like Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid. Like you can't compare the Premier League to anything, but you can have that like high fancy bougie excellence kind of vision, and the more local people from the city, etc. I think Paris FC has indeed a great place to put it.
I'm interested to see how the rivalry between Paris and PSG develops, because it's a pretty unique case where you have stadiums right across the street of each other.
Yeah. I'm wondering, for the moment, Paris FC is playing the good friends of PSG and PSG the good friends of Paris FC and stuff. The one thing like in France, PSG is like it's like the Martians of like the French League One. They're so far from other teams that the teams don't even dare to compare themselves to PSG. So I think like there's still a gap. It really depends on how much investment they're going to put and how much like in the long run Paris FC manages to like stabilize in the first tier, and to what extent when can Paris FC kind of like get a draw against PSG or start winning or like create a little story. Then you could start creating the momentum around it. But I think we still have a few years before we get there.
Yeah, but you can start, I think, building from not from the sports side. For the sports side, I think they are miles away. And there's few years, they need few years to, as you said, stabilize and run the operations and everything. But from the storytelling standpoint, like being the underdog of the city, like I think they have a massive opportunity in there, and the fact that both stadiums are just right across the street can help develop something unique and special. You only have that in Liverpool, maybe, so between Everton and Liverpool, that the stadiums are very close.
Yeah,
but there are not many other berries
right across the street.
You have the things across the street.
Yeah, look, it's super interesting. And it's an interesting one also, just like to get back to the brand element, Paris FC, they have the Paris brand in it. And so now it's good and stuff. But I do think that from a, like that cultural element, there were like other clubs with bigger potential, like Red Star, and like, you know, now Versailles is trying to do something that's interesting, and also like with a strategy that's interesting as well. It's just hard to anticipate like how well Paris FC is going to do, because truth is, like, if they go back to League Two, what becomes of the club, right? And like all these, like that's the thing about like open leagues in Europe. Like it's always challenging, because the reality is like the scenario of one bad year, one issue, you go down, and then coming back up will be super challenging. So it's hard to anticipate, but I think it is definitely exciting to see.
Depending on the at the end, that's true. Like the sport performance, it's so important to the core of your business, and you need to be ready in case the sport falls, because it can happen.
And that's the hardest part about the sports industry, right? Like it's getting back to the like valuations and all of that. It's like kind of, you have to be as detached from the results as possible, but the results have such an impact in your business that like, how do you find that right balance? That's a challenging one.
Where do you see in all the things that we've discussed, where do you see now the biggest opportunities? We are in the moment where the traditional model is challenged. Media rights is not anymore the main driver of revenue. So where, if you were sitting as a chairman of any sport organization, where do you think the sport organizations need to invest?
I think that I'm biased, but I think there's a huge opportunity of using the technologies in a very good way, because as mentioned earlier, like there's a lot of investment. So there's a lot of good technologies that can serve your purposes. So having a club that really understands that and takes that next angle of, we're a media company first and foremost, and we have to get as much data in as possible and as much reach as possible externally to actually exist beyond the rights money that we're getting. So I think that there's a huge opportunity there. I think that like if you ask me which kind of models I love Atletico Bilbao, of making the most out of your region and making sure that in your territory you create much more than just like the appetite for money, but the appetite for belonging. So I think that as companies, clubs will have a chance to differentiate now and create real IP, real value, real identities that you need to be able to capitalize on. I think that one of the angles where Paris FC can do very well is if they do well at benefiting from the local talent in Paris. That's a huge opportunity for them. So yeah, if I had to choose two, it would be like going down the tech angle and like really outstanding at that level, and then afterwards it's like still investing on those solid like local community. I think just as an entrepreneur for LaSource, what I'm hoping is that people don't come to me for money, because otherwise they'll leave for money. And I think there's a big opportunity for clubs to start having people come to them for the values and for what they are, versus only think about the money first.
I think sports is one of the few spaces and few industries that can really do that. That you can people come just for passion.
Yeah,
they come for passion to work on it, and also they come for passion just to consume the content.
Yeah,
and that's like it's unique.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, do you want to go to the next startup because they've had the biggest raise recently, or do you want to go to the startup that's more bootstrapped, but that has a product and you want to build something together that's not pressured by the immediate revenue, but the growth is built on the culture and what you're building as a team.
Yeah, sometimes when you hear or you read bios of different investors, successful investors, at the end they always say that what's behind the real success is not the technology, it's the people, it's the culture you build.
Yeah,
and with sport we already have a very good baseline where culture matters a lot, and I think the industry needs to go back and invest more in those values. I totally agree with you on that point.
That's the thing, right? There's almost a thing in entrepreneurs is like, how much did you raise, Kike? I don't care how much you raise. How much revenue are you creating, right? And it's the same thing. Like for an athlete, I hope the conversation moves to from like, how much are you making, to what's your title, what's your history? You were a tier 2 player, but you made all the right decisions to live the best experiences in life. And I think that that's what you're going to take away at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So yeah.